Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, Jens Davidson here. So today we are going to cover another part in a series that I wanted to start on my various methods of making coffee. I have not even tried to count how many different methods that I've accumulated over the years since about 2008 when I became a self-proclaimed coffee snob. But today we're basically going to do like the pinnacle. I'm going to make a latte from scratch right here in my kitchen. I don't have a $3,000, fully automatic Latte espresso machine. My espresso maker is the Flair Classic, which is only about $160, and it does a absolutely fantastic job of pulling primo shots of espresso. So we're going to go ahead and do that. In addition, we're going to do a manual approach to frothing the milk to get that nice foamy, sort of steamed milk texture that you're used to at a coffee shop. And no, I don't have any fancy milk frothing equipment for that either. I'm just going to use a small French press, which does a terrific job. So here we go. Okay, so here's everything that we need for making an espresso. Kind of looks like a lot, but I'll walk you through it. To begin with, you need good water. This is a 0 water pitcher. I don't know if I've mentioned this in a previous video or not, but I have a master's degree in chemistry with a focus in analytical chemistry, and I have tested the output of 0 water using a $120,000 inductively coupled plasma optical emission spectrometer to assess what elements are left over. And basically there's a tiny bit of calcium and magnesium that makes it through this thing, and we're talking on the parts per million scale. It does an impressive job of filtering water. So that's what we start with. We pour water into our kettle here. This is a little Hario electric kettle. It does a great job. I've had it for 8 years now. That does a quick job of boiling the water. And while the water is boiling, we're going to use, frankly, what some consider the finest hand grinder there is, the Kinu M47. This is, by a long shot, the most expensive article of coffee equipment that I have purchased. This baby was like $320. Not cheap, but it is exquisitely crafted and engineered. And yeah, it's worth every penny. I'm single, I don't have a wife that I have to account for, so I can get away with it. Unfortunately, so this is a Flair Classic espresso maker. With any espresso production, this is key. You can't cheap out on a grinder. There are there are definitely cheaper grinders that will still give you an effective quality grind for espresso, but when it comes to using something like the classic little Hario job here, Hario Skarton, I modified this so I could use a drill on it. This won't work, not for espresso. And I'm not saying that to be pompous, but the coarseness of grind adjustment on the Hario Skarton will not allow you to dial in a shot on an espresso maker. Not only the Flair, but any espresso maker you get. Flair does have the Neo, which is it has a pressurized portafilter design, so you could get away with that using a Flair Neo and still make decent espresso, but yeah, that's a completely different animal. We're talking here, we're using a bottomless portafilter, and that allows you to do a great job of dialing in espresso shots. So anyway, I'm going to quit jabbering. Again, while our water is boiling, we're grinding our coffee beans, and once the water is done boiling, we're going to preheat the brew head. So these are the components of the Flair. So this is a very valuable attachment to the Flair that I recently purchased about a month ago, the pressure gauge. This was like an extra $50 and absolutely huge benefit. I was using the regular plastic pistons on the flare that basically go on there like that, and the flare lever presses that down through your coffee in there. But I was obviously, with this I don't get any feedback in terms of how much pressure I'm using. This gauge, as seen here, has marks for every bar. The units of this are bar. Look it up. It's a unit of pressure, similar to PSI, but significant conversion there. So with espresso, the generally accepted pressure that is required to pull espresso shots is between 6 and 9 bar, which 9 bar is approximately 140 psi if you want to use psi units. This also has down here the black area, which is around 12 bar and up. It has stop breakage because on the flare this system is not designed to handle as much lever force as is required to generate in excess of 12 bar, and so you will break the unit. It's not engineered to take that kind of force. But we're plenty safe here, and this allows you to make sure that you don't accidentally, if you didn't have a pressure gauge, you could potentially go overboard and damage your flare. So this is a good safety feature in that regard, and it's also phenomenal for pre-infusion step, which we'll cover in a little bit, and for making sure that you're pulling proper espresso shots at the right pressure. So again, once we have our ground coffee, our water just finished boiling, we're going to preheat these units because hotter is better. And to do that, we will simply take this, put it in there, pour the boiling water in. While that's heating up, we are preparing the puck for our espresso, and that's simply putting in the coffee into the portafilter using the flare included funnel. And I made this myself out of buckthorn wood. Turned out quite beautifully. Turned it on my lathe. The flare gives you a tamper, just a little plastic one. This is included in the kit, and obviously it works just fine, but I wanted to get fancy. So once the puck is prepared, you put your shower screen on there. This is also called the dispersion screen, and what that does is it prevents the water. If you didn't have it and then you poured water in there, it would churn up all the coffee grounds and completely make a mess out of it, and you would not get any pressure out of here because you wouldn't have a consolidated puck. This is something that the water will splash on, and therefore it will slowly splash onto or fill up the brew chamber, and so you don't have any churning of the grounds and your puck stays intact. Then once that's all taken care of, simply pop that on there. There's O-rings that seal everything up. Fill this with water up to that hole right there until the water is there. Put the pressure gauge on. Put the whole unit on here, and your espresso or your receptacle, espresso shot glass or what have you, under there, and then we pull the shot. While we're pulling the shot of espresso, we're going to have our milk heating up in the microwave, and run it in the microwave for 90 seconds, and that gives me a pretty good temperature, generally where I want. And after we've finished pulling our shot of espresso, then we will churn that up and froth it using, it's a French press, we'll use that. And then pour that into the cup with our espresso, and voila, you have a latte, which I assure you tastes far superior to anything that you'll get at Starbucks. So, without further ado, let's get cracking. Alright, water is going to come up to a boil. We are going to measure out 15 grams of coffee. That's what I have worked up, but Flair will tell you that this particular unit is totally fine anywhere between about 14 to 17, even upwards of 18 grams of coffee. As you've probably seen in my first video of the coffee brewing series, I roasted these beans myself. And I'm getting low, so I need to roast some more. And 14.97 is close enough. Actually, we'll do one more bean here. 1507, I like that better. Beans into the grinder. And I'll put a little timer in the video so you can see how long it takes me to grind 15 grams of coffee with the Genu M47 there. Oops. Make sure all those little fragments are out. Oh, I forgot. It's important to stir the coffee grounds in here up because they can clump up, as you can see here. You don't want that because it gives you an uneven distribution of grounds throughout the puck, and therefore that can cause channeling, which is never really that great. So I just made this in my basement, but you can use a toothpick. I was bored and just made this out of a 2x4 with a small plane. It's basically a really long toothpick slash chopstick. I'll shake that up a little bit to get it somewhat even. And we'll tamp it. I have to periodically knock this on the bench like that because as I push it down, some grounds get stuck on the wall, and so this knocks them back down. And we're looking great. Don't need these anymore. Shower screen on here. Alright, this just finished boiling. I switched mugs because this one looks better for lattes. Alrighty. Get this in the microwave. 90 seconds. This is obviously going to be hot, so tongs are helpful. I'm going to reposition the camera so that you guys can get a shot at the underside of this, and well, frankly, that'll help me with a visual representation of what's going on. Look at this. I am using two cameras right now. It is almost like I'm trying to be a legitimate YouTuber. So right now, out of frame, I'm filling up the group head here. I'm going to put the pressure gauge on here. It will be oriented such that you guys can see it. And now I'm going to take the drip tray out and put my receptacle underneath there, and get my other camera. It's going to shoot the bottom of the portafilter. Alright, now we have action. We're going to pre-infuse for about 40 seconds. So that means just applying 1 to 2 bar of pressure. And what that's going to do is very slowly and gradually introduce coffee into the puck so that it's allowed to soak in uniformly, so that we have a uniform extraction across the whole surface area of the puck. If I don't do that and instead just jam this thing all the way up to 9 bar and hold it, the water is going to take the path of least resistance and you will get a real pain in the neck called jetting, which is where you have squirts coming out here and there. I apologize for the lighting. That's yeah, I'm not at that point yet in my YouTube career, so you're gonna have to just bear with me. So we're gonna start pulling our shot. Trying to keep my hand out of the frame of the camera. Easier said than done. Normally I would pull the espresso cup out of the path of the jet once the pressure drops below 9 bar and let the rest of it just drip onto the tray, but well, this is going into a cappuccino, so I'm not really going to taste as much of the espresso. And the finished shot doesn't look too bad at all. I hope it came out pretty good on the other camera. Very nice crema on there. Definitely nothing to complain about there. Now we're going to froth the milk. I don't need the big camera recording. Pour this into our handy dandy milk pitcher. And if you are expecting me to perform latte art, that is not going to happen. Because I have not figured out how to do that. But I'm pretty confident that it doesn't have anything to do with my milk frothing methodology, because the texture, in my opinion, is indistinguishable from what I would get at any self-respecting cafe. There you have it. Give it a little swirl so it looks fancy, right? Done. Well, there you have it, ladies and gents. That's a homemade latte. I guarantee you it tastes better than anything in Starbucks, because I've had Starbucks for quite a few years. That is a fantastic caffeinated beverage right there. So, in the long run, I think it saves a lot of money, because think about it, this latte right here, you go to any coffee shop, you're paying $5 for it, and I've been doing this for 3 years. So, and I drink coffee every single day. So imagine how much money, do the math, it makes sense to buy one of these. Oh, I almost forgot. Some of you might want to see the cleanup procedure for the flare. It's fairly extensive, bear with me. Rinse that out in the sink. And using Flair's supplied tamper, done. Piece of cake. So if anybody complains about this thing being a pain in the butt to clean, I have to disagree. There's our puck, partially, some of it broke off. Very nicely maintained. Alright, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching.